You start it, I start it, you start it, I start this one. Hello everyone, welcome back to Foster the Meeple, a channel all about
board games
and
board gaming things.
Exactly. Get over here. We're back again with another installment of our top 50 games of all time. And Jeff, what ones are we doing today?
22. 11.
Exactly. And that means we're
Did you get
one
me to
away
do that
from top
because
10.
you didn't know?
No, I knew. I know the math every time. So we are here to do our 20 to 11. So we're getting really into it now. Like these are like the best of the best. The next video is the best of the best of the best of the best in the West. But today's pretty close. So we are going to get started with number 20, and I get to start today because Jeff got to start last time. So my number 20 has been on the list every year, and I don't know where it fell last year. It was my number 22 last year. So it's risen, which is funny because we didn't play it this year at all. And that is Empires of the North. For the full title, it is Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. And this is one of the games that Jeff and I got really early on. And it just feels like not enough people talk about it. In fact, barely anybody talks about it. I know that Nick and Mike enjoy it. I know that Sam from Lord of the Board enjoys it. But who else talks about this game? Nobody. And that's unacceptable. It's amazing. So basically, in this game, you're playing as a different faction, and they all play slightly differently. It's pretty much an engine builder where you are kind of like building out your village to gather resources, and then you're going to go sailing, and you're doing all of these different things in order to score points. And it's adorable. And there's like a million different factions that you can be. I think we have all but one of the expansions, and my favorite faction is a penguin girl. And I don't see this game ever dropping off my top 50 because I love it so much.
Are you have any interest in playing the, actual, there's another one, isn't there?
Imperial Settlers?
Yeah.
I mean, I would try it. I think that's the original, but I've already got a perfect game in Empires of the North.
Fair. Why
ruin a good thing?
My number 20 is the highest of the Eric Lang trilogy, Blood Rage, Ankh, and Rising Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Blood Rage.
Obviously, because Ankh is a dud. It was your number 23 last year.
Yeah, I've played it more. So it checks out.
You play it on BGA.
I do play it primarily on BGA, but I did notice Matt, when he was here, was like, oh, is this an expansion? So maybe it's something we can play in person. Blood Rage is a area control card drafting game where you are playing as Norse factions,
Vikings.
And trying to use card play in order to control different areas of this North
Midgard
mythos. There's multiple paths to victory of this game. It's kind of a troops on a map smorgasbord of utilizing your action points to the best of your ability in order to score the most victory points. It's kind of like just a big point race. You're going to play this over, I think, if I remember correctly, it's 3 or 4 ages. And you're going to have a certain amount of action points that you can utilize to effectively pillage these regions. And these regions are going to be pillaged by the troops that you put out on the map. There's different levels of troops. There's special creatures, monsters you can get to help support you. And then you're going to be blindly playing out cards to add to those to the strength of your characters, effectively. Mm-hmm. I very much love Blood Rage. I'm not very good at Blood Rage. I don't really understand the strategy too much, but I've been having a blast playing it. I would like to play it more in person.
I think that's the problem with Blood Rage is the people who are really good at it are really good at it.
Yeah.
And I can't play it without getting crushed, and so I do not enjoy it.
I think Blood Rage is a game you need to play with like talented people.
It's like Root. You don't want to play Root with a bunch of experienced people if you don't know what's going on. My number 19 was my number 20 last year. Mm-hmm. So she'd be hovering around this spot, and that is Dice Throne. I love Dice Throne. Jeff works for Dice Throne, but he's not me.
It's not on my list because I work for them.
What does that have to do with anything?
I'm just not getting into the weeds of that nonsense.
Oh, I've never cared about that. The point is that I love Dice Throne. We have been Dice Throne fans since the beginning, since any of the re-rolled came out. Like, we played the original Dice Throne when it kind of first came out, and then they started making new characters, and then they started redoing the old characters, and now there's a bunch of other things that are going on at Dice Throne. It's very exciting. So Dice Throne is essentially like Battle Yahtzee. It's the easiest way to describe it. Everybody's going to be playing as a character. You are rolling your dice, and those dice are going to form different combinations. You get re-rolls to mitigate that, and you've got some card play that you're doing as well. And you're doing all of that in order to knock down the hit points or the health of your opponent before they do that to you. Now, you can play this more than 2. Mm-hmm. Not for me. For me, I like to play it at 2. That's kind of our preferred way to play it. We do a Dice Throne tournament every year, except last year, because we decided, I guess we weren't doing any tournaments last year, but we will do one this year. Mm-hmm. We're excited. We're just waiting for the Marvel X-Men to fulfill to its backers first, and then we will do our tournament again, which is very exciting. But I love Dice Throne because I love chucking dice, and I also I love the new characters. It's the same thing for me as things like...
You mean the Outcast characters?
I love all the characters.
No, but like, is that, you said I like the new characters. Are you talking about Outcasts specifically?
Oh, I thought I said I like the characters.
Yeah.
Like, I like, just like in Unmatched and things like that, where you just have so many different things and everything is mix and match. Like, that's like my favorite thing. I'm a collector, so I like a game you can collect.
Yeah, I did not even rank Dice Throne because I do not want to give people ammo to get at me about bias, because I do work for Dice Throne. So my number 19 is another GMT game. Is it my highest? Of course it isn't.
Yeah, I was like, no.
And that is Dominant Species.
I knew it was going to be Dominant Species. It was your number 5 last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
What a drop.
That's fair.
Wow.
I mean, you'll see some of these games that are now in my top 10. Mm-hmm. Dominant Species is another area control game where you are representing different species types. There's arachnids, or at least in the original. So I'm going to speak about that one. There's arachnids, there's
mammals,
reptiles, mammals, insects, a whole bunch of stuff. And what you're trying to do is basically spread out over this map of the world through all of these different terrain types. You're going to score points for manipulating your species and becoming more resilient by spreading it out across bigger land areas. But while this is all happening, there's going to be an ice age that is kind of taking away these areas from your creatures, and you're obviously competing against other species for dominance. This is, I think, quite honestly, one of the most perfect games that exists. I very much like the very systematic way that actions take place. It's basically everyone's going to trigger the same things in the same order round over round. And I really like that because you know what's coming and you can plan 2 or 3 steps ahead. I don't have that chess brain where I can do that with abstract games, but in Dominant Species, I can kind of map things out over 3 rounds because it's consistently the same. I love it. It's amazing, and I know it's probably higher on Jamie's list. I think I do prefer the original to the Marine. Just personal preference, really. They're both phenomenal. But yeah, Dominant Species is my number 19.
All right, my number 18 was my number 18 last year.
Oh.
Isn't that funny? And that is Undaunted X. Undaunted, name one of the games. I always clump them all together, but my favorite is Normandy. However, we did play a lot of Battle of Britain this year, and that one's kind of eked its way in a little bit.
I don't know. I don't know where I am on those two yet.
Between the two? Yeah. I don't know. I just
really like Battle of
Britain. There's something special about Normandy. I don't know, because it's the first one and all of that stuff. So for anybody that doesn't know, Undaunted is kind of a system of games. There's Normandy, there is Battle of Britain, there's North Africa, there's Stalingrad, now there is Callisto 2200. And these are war-themed games, but they're essentially deck builders. So you are playing through different scenarios, most of which, with the exception of Callisto, you're playing out like actual battles that have happened in history. So I know the theme of war is a little bit difficult for people, we don't have an issue with it. We really enjoy war games. And this one, I feel like if you are looking to kind of get into the theme, the vibe of the war games, this is not a war game in the way that like, this is not like a big war game, but it's a war theme game. So I think this is a great entry point. And I love the system. I love everything about it. I always enjoy our plays of this no matter which one we're playing. So I love Undaunted.
Agreed. My number 18 is definitely going to be higher on Jamie's list, but it will be there. This is another kind of systematic system within a board game, and that is Kanban.
It's funny because as soon as you said that, I was like, it's Kanban. It was number 7 last year.
Kanban EV is a action worker placement, action selection worker placement game where you are effectively trying to build cars. You are workers in a car manufacturing plant, and you're going to be taking actions in order to achieve victory points by completing board member type goals, objectives, as well as building cars. And each of these sections of this board are different phases of building a car. You need blueprints, you need parts to build the car, you need to test the car, and then you need to put it into your garage effectively.
You need to learn.
And you need to learn, yeah. So the more you learn how to do these things effectively, the more you're going to score for doing that thing. You're going to become an expert in certain avenues of building these cars, which are going to score you victory points. There's a whole smatter of things you can do. But ultimately, I don't think one that is overly complicated, if I'm talking about all the Lacerdas.
Yeah.
It is a pretty straightforward in terms of like understanding what you need to do in order to be successful.
Yep.
Meanwhile, while all that is happening, what's her name?
Sandra.
I always get it confused with Susan.
Yeah.
Sandra, right? Sandra is ripping around, and Sandra's your boss, and she's a piece of work. She's going to be judging you constantly. She's holding you accountable.
She's HR.
And deducting points and punishing you for
not being smart enough,
doing things incorrectly, etc., etc. Kanban EV is incredible, and I highly recommend it.
I also highly recommend it. My number 17 was my number 10 last year, and I still see it kind of like probably continuing to hover in like the 20-ish area as time goes on, but that is Lost Ruins of Arnak. I love the Lost Ruins of Arnak. We haven't physically gotten it to the table this year, but I do play it on BGA all the time. The only problem with that, and I do enjoy playing it on BGA, but the problem is that BGA doesn't have the expansions included. And since we have played with the Expedition Leaders expansion, I don't really want to play it any other way because I think that it really enhances the gameplay.
Yeah.
So for anybody that doesn't know, the Lost Ruins of Arnak is like a worker placement kind of deck building style game where you are placing out your workers into this like jungle area and you're going up a track trying to discover, believe it or not, the Lost Ruins of Arnak. Crazy. As you go through the jungle, you're defeating guardians. You are also collecting cards by buying them from coins or compasses, which also have points on them. You're defeating guardians, which also have points on them. You are getting relics, which you can use to convert things, and you can get everything is just to get points, as per most board games. I love it. I've loved it since I've played it. I think I've always loved it way more than Jeff until you played with the Expedition Leaders.
I like it way more now than I did originally.
I just beat Jeff and Mike in a game.
I mean, this is a personal thing. It's not really the game's fault. I'm not very good at that game, admittedly, and I think that pulls me back from it. I just don't understand the strategy in that game. I always think I'm doing well, and I never do.
My strategy is never going up the tracks. I always do guardians and cards.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, I think that's a game I also just inherently like more in person than on BGA.
Yeah.
I don't think I overly enjoy it on BGA.
It's just a lot to keep track of on BGA, one of those bigger games.
Yeah. My number 17 is new to the list.
A
new to me game from last year, and that is Prodigal's Club. higher on Jamie's list clearly. Prodigal's Club, I think, is probably something that's going to float around this 10 to 20 space. Prodigal's Club is a worker placement game where you are just trying to be the biggest POS that you can. You are trying to get rid of all of your assets. You're trying to be rambunctious at dinner parties. You're trying to lose all of your money. You're trying to lobby at these organizations to be loud, and you don't want people to vote for you, so you're just like being a jerk. And it's amazing. It's basically whatever track, there's like 4 tracks, I believe. Well, tracks, there's 4 areas of the board that you are effectively getting a score in. Mm-hmm. And the end game, your score, whatever is your highest, your most popular section, is what your end game scoring is going to be. So you want to be a big POS on an equal amount of
Every
spaces
aspect of your life.
in order to score the most effectively. This was introduced to us by Nick at the Brothers Murph, who absolutely adores this game.
It's his favorite game.
I'm so happy he did. And I think this is one that's going to just continue to be around here, because I think it is our only Suchi game that we've played so far. Yeah. And excited to try more of his. But Prodigal's Club is a blast.
Alrighty. My number 16 was my number 11 last year. And Jeff recently talked about this. And that is Dominant Species, which is my highest GMT game, because I already talked about Cuba Libre a little while ago, if you'll remember the heartbreak back then. Mm-hmm. I love Dominant Species. I love games that just make sense, and this game just makes sense because of, like Jeff said, that procedural aspect. I'm not going to talk, obviously Jeff already talked a lot about it, but there's 2 things that I want to mention that I really like. Number 1 is that each species, because you're playing as your own, plays a little bit differently and gives you different advantages. Mm-hmm. So there might be like certain games, depending on your player count, where you might not want to be a certain animal, because that advantage isn't really going to help you in a 2-player game, where it might be really helpful in like a 5-player game. The other thing that I really like is how mean this game is. This game is mean, and if you do not like mean games, because you're going to be building stuff up and a monkey's going to come by and go and just blow it all up, and that is not for everyone, but we find that really fun. Sucks when it happens to you, but it's really fun and quite funny when you do it to somebody else.
Agreed.
So I love Dominant Species. We have played the marine version. I also prefer the regular version, though I think that they're both great. So if you're looking for like a way to get into GMT games, Dominant Species is a good way to get into GMT.
Or Leaping Lemmings.
Don't forget about that one, for the love of God.
My number 16, I don't know if Jamie's talked about it yet.
I don't know.
And if she hasn't, that means it's higher, because it's definitely on our list. And that is Grand Austria Hotel.
I haven't talked about it yet.
Figured.
It was your number 15 last year.
Grand Austria Hotel was another one that was introduced to us. Well, I shouldn't say it was introduced to us. We knew they loved it.
Yes. And then it was Mike's favorite game.
And then we finally got a copy and played it. So the Brothers Murph also love this game. Grand Austria Hotel is a dice drafting, not drafting, it's a dice, is it dice drafting? Yep. You are going to take a dice and do an action. And what you're trying to do in this game is fill up your guests so that they're nice and full, and then you're going to put them to bed in your hotel.
Yeah.
And you're going to score points. All these guests have like certain requirements that they're looking for in terms of like ingredients and food, and then certain color-coded like hotel rooms are going to do bonuses. There's kind of like a, I don't call it set collection piece, but you're kind of like trying to get guests in the same block of rooms, depending on color, to score extra victory points. It's a blast.
So my number 15 was my number 14 last year. It will be higher on Jeff's list for sure. Don't know where it's going to fall, but that is Vast, the Crystal Caverns. We have not played Vast, Mysterious Manor, though that is one of my goals for this year, is to get that one played. Right? Yeah. We gotta.
It's just that is a hard game to get to the table.
It is, but when Ben and Sarah move here, there will be no more difficulties. When that happens, I'll be very excited. Anyways, Vast Crystal Caverns is a game that it's probably one of the most unique games that I feel like we have played, where everybody is playing as a specific character, and each of those characters has their own goal, which is to kill another character.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're playing as the cave, in which case your goal is to kill everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're playing as the ghost, in which your goal is to loot and escape, but somebody else is trying to not kill you, but stop you, basically. Mm-hmm. Anyways, it's chaos. It's probably like the easiest way to play a mean game because you can't get mad at somebody if their goal is literally to kill you.
The whole purpose is to... Mm-hmm. You can't get mad at someone. That's their goal.
That's their goal. Yeah. And every player has like their own asymmetrical rules. And so everybody is getting to play their own kind of different game, which I really enjoy. This is one of Leader Games' older games. So it's not really talked about a lot anymore. We had a chance to get it back to the table last year at Level Up. And I had a blast again.
I think we're doing it again.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Like, it's so good. This game is so
I've only ever played as the goblins.
Oh, so I've played as the knight and I've played as the thief. I played as both of those twice.
I tend to always be the goblins because I'm the one that like knows the game the best.
Yeah. The goblins are a little bit more complicated for sure. Yeah, I love Vast, and I know Jeff's going to talk about it probably later.
Probably, yep. My number 15 is another Uwe game. And that is A Feast for Odin.
Mm-hmm. It was your number 17 last year.
Feast for Odin is a worker placement game where you are trying to feed your Viking clan, and you're trying to grow your Viking clan in order to take more actions. You're trying to go on expeditions, and there is a polynomial component to this game where you're going to score points based off of how you can build out your tableau effectively. So you're going to start the game with all of these empty spaces, and most of those empty spaces are negative points. As you go on expeditions and as you get new animals and food and all of these things and treasure, you're going to be adding it to your tableau, which is going to be reducing your negative points back down to 0, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. There's this really interesting tug and pull of like, I'm going to go on an expedition to this new island, but that island is going to add to your negative points. That island's going to have all of those areas that need to be covered up as well. So it's kind of like this worker placement, somewhat engine buildy type situation where you want to be able to go to an action space and do a bunch of stuff and get really good treasure and really good resources so you can add them to your board, but also being mindful that each round you have to feed your clan, which Jamie hates. But I do think you would like this game if we could sit down and play it.
I played this game numerous times. Here's a few things about this game. Number 1, I've never learned how to play it, so I don't ever know what's going on. Number 2, I played it in person once and got totally smashed because I still didn't learn how to play it, which apparently is important in games.
Yeah, it is.
Who knew? Anyways, I'm sure that I would like it if I actually knew the rules. But the point of the fact and the matter is, I do not. My number 14 was my number 15 last year, and Jeff just recently chatted about it, and that is Grand Austria Hotel.
Oh boy, we're close on that.
I love this game. It's just so... like, it's so simple in the rules, but it's not necessarily simple to score a lot of points.
Given how Mike crushed us.
Well, there's a lot to manage, you see, because something I don't think that you mentioned is there's another track, and if you're, like, not far along that track, then you get, like, you lose a bunch of points and, like, all of this stuff. So there's a lot to manage in this game. While really the main mechanic is, okay, well, do I want the 1s, which give me this action, or do I want the 2s? And the amount of dice in that pool is the strength of the action that you get to take. And then there is some manipulation and mitigation that you can do. But I just I don't know what it is. This is a freaking great game. We played it and we were immediately like, love this game. Yep. Love this game. So we have played the roll and write. I do enjoy the roll and write, but I prefer just to play this, but the roll and write is on BGA, so it's like the only way you can really play it virtually. But I love Grand Austria Hotel. I think it's just going to continue hovering in this spot for a while.
Yeah. My number 14 is a game I've grown re-affinity for.
Re-affinity.
Is that a word?
Nope.
Probably not. And it's Great Western Trail.
Oh, let's see where that was. Great. It was number 14 last year.
Right where it needs to be.
There you go.
So re-affinity is a lie. I have the exact same amount of
I have
affinity.
the same affinity.
Great Western Trail is a rondel movement game where you are trying to kind of collect different cattle types and then deliver them to different regions. And depending on the amount of cattle that you have to deliver, you're going to be able to put some discs out on these locations that you're delivering to in order to score victory points. There's way more to this game. You can build new buildings. You can corral cattle. You can move a train along the track depending on how you build your individual tableau, because there's engineers, there's ranchers, and then there's builders effectively. I've played the base game of Great Western Trail. I've played the new second edition as well as one of the expansions.
Argentina?
Not the one that has its own new map. It's the one that adds to the base game up on the top, kind of a building board type situation. Anyway, Great Western Trail is absolutely incredible. I do not ever get sick of this game. No matter, I've played it an absolute crap ton, and I still love it every single time. There's so many different strategies you can find. I absolutely adore it, and I think it's probably just going to keep hovering here.
My favorite memory of Great Western Trail is still the fail of the trail.
Yeah.
My number 13, I think, has probably fallen off of Jeff's list this year, which is kind of crazy. I assume it has anyways. And that's Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
And Stardew Valley was my number 7 last year, so it's dropped a little bit. And so just in a nutshell, Stardew Valley is a board game based on the video game where you are given different goals to achieve, and you have to achieve them by doing different kinds of work. You got to make friends, you got to go mining, you got to take stuff to donate to artifacts and stuff, you got to farm, you got to do all of the things, fish, everything. This game we have played again this year at 2 and at 3. We just recently played it at 2. It's impossible.
It's
nearly impossible.
I think that's why it's dropped off my list.
Mm-hmm. To the point where in our last play, we're like, there's no possible way that we can achieve these goals just with how we're going. And I think that means, for me anyways, you most likely need to house rule at 2, which is fine. We're good with house rules. Some people
I feel
aren't.
like some people have commented and been like, we find it super easy at 2. And that just makes me think either we're playing it wrong or they are. But I don't think we are.
I don't know. Who's to say? But we did get to play it with Nick this year.
It was great at 3.
And that was great.
Yeah.
And I'd love to play it at 4 as well. But I just love it because, we love Stardew Valley. And there's just something, special about being able to, it almost feels like you're doing it real life when you're playing the board game. My only big complaint, besides the 2-player thing, is that it's a lot of setup.
It is a lot of setup.
And the box does not hold things in place. So every time I take it out, it's like an explosion has happened. Anyways, Stardew Valley, love it.
My number 13 is a game we need desperately to get back to because we made commitments with this game that we have not achieved, but we're going to achieve it in 2025.
What is it?
And that is Too Many Bones.
It was your number 11 last year.
Too Many Bones is an RPG in a box. It is a one-shot RPG in a box. Mm-hmm. You're going to be playing a bunch of different scenarios with a bunch of different... There's so many characters you can play as now. And how it works is you're going to be playing through scenarios and leveling up your character. And the character's abilities are all utilizing dice. So you're going to be recruiting new dice into your player tableau that's going to unlock new abilities. And most of these abilities have to do with typical RPG stuff. Mm-hmm. Casting magic, healing, attacking, etc., etc. And you're going to be, again, playing through a scenario through event cards. You can lock pick for treasure to get new abilities and new cards, and at the end of every scenario there's a big boss fight, and as you play through the scenario it's going to determine maybe what happens at that end boss fight. Maybe you go in a different direction and it gives you a benefit or a detriment. Too Many Bones is incredible. I absolutely adore it. We still plan on getting through our full play of these and then ranking all of our favorite characters.
Yep.
In 2025. But yeah, Too Many Bones, absolute blast. It reminds me of a video game in a board game form, and I love it for that.
Mm-hmm. My number 12 was my number 8 last year, and we did get this to the table past year actually, and Jeff's already talked about it in this video, and that is Kanban EV.
Yep.
what else is there to say? This is a game, we have coined the term Kanban-y because when a game just makes sense, when everything you need to do just makes sense, it's a Kanban-y game because everything that you need to do in Kanban just makes sense. Yes, of course, I need to build the car. And of course, I need to become a better expert in that in order to make a better car. And then, yes, of course, we need to test the cars. And then, obviously, we're at work, so we got to have a meeting. And I love it. I just think that this is one of those games that just, like, it just sings when you play it. And it's always a good time. And I do think it's a great entry point into Lacerda games. It was our entry point.
Yep.
And don't be intimidated by it. It's super fun. And the metal cars, if you're wondering, yes, they are essential.
Metal cars are essential.
You gotta have them.
Gotta have them.
Because cars are made of metal.
Yep.
So.
Correct. My number 12 is the highest Uwe on my list. And it should come as no surprise. It is Agricola.
It was your number 6 last year.
Agricola is Uwe's perfect game. It is a very cutthroat, very difficult worker placement game where you are just trying to survive. You're trying to survive, you're trying to build out your farm to survive and feed your family and get as far ahead as you can, essentially. I primarily play Agricola online because no one wants to play me it in person, unfortunately. But I've played Agricola a ton. I still love it. I don't even get to play it online a lot anymore because I don't think anyone likes Agricola as much as I do, of anyone in my friend group.
Right.
Now they want to play, they would rather play Caverna, which, fair enough. It's less mean, it's less cutthroat, it's less difficult. Because in Agricola, if you make a mistake, it can ruin your whole game. And that can be challenging to overcome, and I get it. But Agricola will always be here somewhere. It is definitely my favorite Uwe, and I adore it for what it is.
Agricola. There, I said it. We do have to play it this year because that's part of the Kickstarter that I have to play Agricola again. And
I love that was like the worst thing you put on your list.
Yeah.
You have to play one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
I have to read Fairy Smut. I have to. What else do I have to do?
You have to play Final Girl.
I have to play Final Girl, your favorite game.
Bridgerton.
So we're even right there. I have to watch Bridgerton. I have to read Fairy Smut. Like, what?
Yeah, these are all great things. And we're going to do Uwe all day. So that'll be the time, Jeff. My number 11 is a new game to the list, a new game to me this year. And it's one of my favorite foods that I'm not allowed to eat on this whole life challenge.
Fromage.
And that is fromage.
Fromage
is, I think fromage is a perfect game. I love it so much. If anybody doesn't know, fromage is a game where you are just out here making cheese. And the board is a circle, and the circle spins, okay? It spins. And whichever quarter is in front of you is the area that you are playing in for your turn.
Your top 10.
Yeah, Jeff, wow. I love this game so much. And every one of those quarters is kind of like its own little mini game.
I can't say anything. My top 10 has a bunch of new to me games.
There you go. So every section that you're playing in is its own little mini game, essentially, and you can do two things. You can make cheese, and you can gather resources, and the resources are going to allow you to do a bunch of different things. I love this game. We played it on BGA without even learning it, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. All I know is I'm having a great time doing it.
I'll never forget that.
We're like, what is happening? And then we got it to the table, and we were like, whoa.
Yep.
Fantastic. And so I will play this game anytime somebody wants to. I'm constantly in games of it on BGA. I am extremely excited for the next iteration of this game, which is now going to be Italian cheeses. We're done with French cheese. Now we're moving on to Italy. What comes after Italy? Who else makes cheese? America?
Great question.
We're going to do processed cheese slices?
I mean, in Wisconsin.
That's true.
Wisconsin fromage game. Fromage is in my top 100. And if you want to know where, maybe you can find it on our Patreon.
Yes,
because we are going to be releasing our top 50 to 70 for Patreon only.
That's right. That's going to happen.
So if you're interested in that, go check it out. Join
Patreon.
Last one for this list for me is one that's, I think, kind of bounced around in my top 10, and I think maybe this is the first year it's not in my top 10, and that is Brass Birmingham.
Oh, yeah. That was your number 4 last year.
So I don't get to play this a ton in person, and the one in-person play that we had of this
past year,
was not great. And it's our fault. It's not the game's fault. So that kind of like impacted it. I've also been playing it online, and the online iteration of this game is not great, so that's been somewhat frustrating.
Oh.
But Brass Birmingham is it's amazing. Brass Birmingham is a economic strategy game. I do think there's a bit of route building into it as well. Not that you need to get stuff from point A to point B, but you need to build routes in order to build in different regions, because you need to pull resources into those regions in order to expand your industry effectively. And you can use your own resources, you can use other people around the table's resources. Obviously, you don't want to use other people's because you have to pay for it and it's going to help them, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is just build up your economy, your industry, by improving the buildings, by getting access to new resources. And you're doing this through a canal phase and then a rail phase. And as things go, it's going to get more and more expensive. It is a very tight currency game. You're going to have to take out loans, and I just absolutely love it. I love the aesthetic of this game. I think it is so good. I just wish I could play it more. And I very much want to try Lancashire.
All right, so that was 20 to 11, and I don't know if you knew this, friends, but that means we've got one more list. The big show.
Yeah.
The greatest show. The greatest showman.
Oh, there we go.
Rub a face.
Oh,
that's the greatest show for Jeff. Okay, so just a couple of things. As Jeff mentioned, Patreon, we're going to do 70 to 51. If you're interested, our late pledges for our Kickstarter are still open. If you're interested in getting any of those benefits before it closes up in February. Isn't February?
I know, I agree. It's weird that R's there. I've always thought that.
Now I'm thinking in my bullet journal or my planner, I think I wrote February.
You know what? I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
that R doesn't need to be there.
Doesn't need to be there.
February.
Dumb. Anyways, if you're interested in buying board games, like any of the amazing games that we talked about today, you should first start by checking your friendly local gaming store. And for us, that is
the Boardroom Game Cafe.
And if you like what you see,
please subscribe.
We hope to see you again soon. And now we say goodbye. Goodbye.
Better days.
Blech. Gross. Did you delete your list?
I didn't do anything.
Good job. Holy. What happened? Oh, that was weird, wasn't it, Jeff?
I don't want to do this diet. I want a Baconator.
I want cookies. The cravings probably are going to be the thing that kills me. Just so you know, I might die. Jeff and I are on a healthy life challenge.
It's been half a day.
I already cheated.
What do you mean?
Well, I had my breakfast. I took the points away. And as soon as they said it, I was like, Jeff's not going to know what the heck they're talking about.
That's what we're doing these last two, right?
Correct.
That's what we're doing today?
Correct.
What are we doing the rest of the day?
I have to go to the grocery store. I'm going to go to Winners to pick up some exercise clothing because I got rid of all of it because I stopped exercising.
Can you get... we'll talk about it after.
What do you need?
I would like to get Juno, like, bigger bones that she can, like, chew for a long time while she's down there.
So I can get her, like, a real bone, but they're usually gooky.
What's that mean?
Like, they got stuff on them that's going to get all in your rug. Anyways, we're back. Ooh, jeez. Jeff.
I'm looking at my list, and I'm allowed to. Is it an expansion?
I think so, yeah.
Or am I talking about the roll and write?
We've already played the roll and write. I think there's an expansion.